Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the day. Today we are going to create a React custom hook to fetch data from an API using axios as well. So what I would like to do, I would like to clear my screen here and I'll paste my API link here. Custom hook, API. Okay. So the first step is to make sure you have your React project set up with TypeScript. Mine is already done. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a component folder. And inside my component folder, I will create a hook. I will create a custom hook. So I'll say fetch, use fetch. I can't spell today. Use fetch .txs. So I'll just say RFC, get my function ready. So I'll start by also installing axios. So npmi axios. Then we have to import axios. Import axios from axios. And then inside my use fetch hook, I'm just going to start defining. I'm just going to start by defining the state. I'm just going to, inside my use fetch hook, I'm just going to define my type. So I'll say type. Okay, so we have imported axios. We need to import axios response and axios config from axios as well. Okay, so once that is done, we'll come down here and then we have to define our type. Return type. So say data, loading, and error. So next, I would like to we just have to say so next we just have to say function and then use fetch. We have to define our function here. So we say use fetch. Function use fetch, and then you have to give the URL string, and then you have to give you the option, and then we have to also So once that is done, we give it a use fetch. So we say we have to give it a type that we defined. So give it here, and then also so we say const data equals to set data. Remember to import use state. Also, we have const loading equals to set loading. Also, we have const error and set error. And then also we will now we have defined all our states. So now we will say use, if we have to import use effect. So make sure we import use effect as well. Okay. So once that is done too, we can just come in here and say const fetch data equals to async. Equals to async. Because we are fetching data, we always have to remember to use async. Always remember, because you are fetching data, we need to use async in case there is any delay. So what we do next, inside our fetch data, we give it our try catch block. So const error, I'll give it any here. Const error, const set error. Okay. So once that is done, inside try catch block, we say const. So inside our fetch data, we say const response. We get a response, const response equals to the axios response. And then we have to await our axios get request. And then we will give it a URL and then the options. So the next step is going to be set response.data, so that we will set the state. We will set the data state here. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is to, we have our arrow here done, boom. So once everything is done, then we can say it's loading. We can say loading, sets loading to false. So we set loading to false, but before everything will begin, I would like to set loading to true, so that in case there is some delay, we will just see loading is true. So where am I going to see okay. So once we set loading to true, and then we always have to remember, we need to return our function. So we have to also set the dependency here. So in case whenever the URL or the option change, then we need to render the DOM again. So over here, we have to just return our function. So what are we going to return? We're going to return the data, we are going to return the loading, and then the error state. And then finally, we have to export our use fetch function. So once we export our use fetch function, then we can use it in our application. But always remember, we have to call our fetch function here to make our function works properly. So we have to just come here and say return fetch. So we are just calling the fetch data function. What we are going to do next, now everything is done. Okay. So we can just come inside our main component here. I will clear here and then I will say RFC. Have this here. I have my API link here. So I have an API for a blog. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to define some types for my blog. So I will say, type user, type blog. I will say type blog, type blog equals to, then we will define our type here. The ID is a number, and then the title is a string, and then the, what was it? It was block test. Test is also a string. So inside our function, we just have to get our data and the loading and the error from the use fetch hook we created. So const data loading error from the use fetch hook. Remember to import the use fetch hook. So once we call the use fetch hook, we just have to give it the URL of our API, which is this one. So say API link, and then we will say if loading is true, then I want to return this. And then I also want, if error is true, then I want to return error. So if everything goes okay, then I want to render my data here. So I'll use an unordered list, and then I will just render my data here. So remember each list item is going to have a unique ID. So the ID is going to be the block.id. So inside the list, I want to have a h2, and then I'll give it a block title. I want to save, and then let's see what happens. Yarn start. Boom. So there you go. I've made a custom hook with React, TypeScript, and axios. So my friends, this is how you can make a custom hook to fetch data from an API. And I wish you good luck and happy coding.